So first we'll do each of the objectives, Dragon and Baron, and then we'll talk about how to set up vision when neither of these objectives may be up. So let's start with Dragon Vision, and for starters we'll be doing the blue side first. So a lot of times when you want to set up Dragon, there's pretty much a primary focus of the situation. If the turrets start to die down and there's no turrets here, then I recommend that you walk to mid first. The reason for this is it gives you the easiest access to then walking down the river and getting vision down for your team. In most cases, you basically want your warding situation to be such as this. You usually want to ward over this wall. That way you can see whenever players are walking over in any way, shape, or form. If the mid laner is starting to push over and maybe wants to ward over the wall, or if anyone's coming through this corridor, you can always see them. That way you can utilize this brush and this brush to potentially shoot skill shots over there when they're coming in. I recommend that you try to get a pink both here and here. Now, if you're a support, it just depends on the amount of pressure that that's going on. So, in a situation where you can push up mid extremely hard, and you don't have to worry about maybe the mid lane turret is dead, and you don't need to worry about the mid laner walking down and potentially walking through the river, and you're more concerned about this location right here, this pathway, then I recommend you use the pink ward right here. That way you have bush options to potentially set up people to get caught. In this situation, though, I would also recommend that you use a sweeper on whatever brush that you don't pink if your teammates aren't helping you with vision. After you have a ward right here, and hopefully it is more in the center, that way you can still see if mid laners are moving, and so you can see this corridor, I recommend getting a ward somewhere around here. Now, the main primary concern that you need to be worried about is a pink ward in this location. So in the case where you do know that there's a pink ward or are concerned about it, then I recommend moving the ward down a little bit more here. That way it's out of range of the pink, but still gives you the visibility over the wall. The other thing to be mindful of is on your third ward, it just depends on how the pressure is going. So in a situation where maybe the bot lane is constantly pushing in because you're mid lane right now, and you're concerned about them coming up the river, then I recommend using your third ward in this location. If that's not the case, then maybe after you push out mid, you get a ward more center in the mid lane, just so that you can see whether or not players like the mid lane or any of the other players are trying to cut down through this location. After that, you should be pretty set up to see all of the corridors for Baron in that situation. And that's going to be how we do it on blue side. Now we're going to kind of reset everything right now, and we'll go over to the example of being on the red side. So in this situation, same scenario as before, but this one's actually a bit more tricky because you need to get mid pushed out. Now, in this situation, you have 3 corridors to worry about, such as the same one as the other side, but this one is more middle, this ramp right here, and the tri-bush / cutting under bottom. So in this situation, you'll actually run into a lot more vision contesting. And what I mean by that is it's more likely that a pink ward is here, and maybe a pink ward is there, depending on the time in the game. Because of this scenario, you need to set up your wards in a way that allows you to not run into these, if you can't contest these pink wards, to adjust your vision. So in most cases, as the support, you want to walk to mid, once again, to prep for Baron. I recommend doing this about 45 seconds to a minute beforehand, and it usually takes about 15 seconds or so to walk to mid, so make sure you're calculating that in when you're channeling backs. So a lot of times the best way to go about it is just pink ward as far away as possible. That way no one can stand in this location right here and shoot over and take your pink ward. That's an important part of this. The next part is making sure that you ward over the wall. The reason why you ward like this is so that while you're sitting on your pink ward right here, you have options to shoot skill shots over the wall and potentially if the mid laner is trying to walk over and contest it. This also allows you to avoid running into this pink ward right here. Next, ideally, after you've established a set of vision, you do want to walk up and potentially contest this pink ward right here, and then get a ward down in this location. If for whatever reason you can't contest this pink ward or want to dodge this pink ward, in most situations what you can do is you can actually take the green ward and just ward it really deep, such as this. The reason for that is you're basically just abusing where the pink ward is. So in this situation, right, you ward this really deep right here, and that causes it so that if they repink this location after you take it away, it won't be in range to be pink. They'll have to either pink defensively, such as, move a pink here, or potentially sweep it, which makes them have to commit a lot more vision. Outside of that, if you're concerned about a champion possibly contesting over the wall, then your best ward is usually just right here. And the reason for that is there's usually a blast cone here, plus a lot of junglers nowadays can pop over the wall, and you want to make sure that you have as much full range of vision so that you can see whenever someone is trying to contest it over a wall. Maybe they're trying to steal it and then jump back over, or maybe abuse a blast plant, or just shoot skill shots that may try to steal it. So at that point in time, that's pretty much what you want to look at for all of the dragon situations. Next we'll tackle is the Baron vision. In most situations, you pretty much just want a centrifuge of vision. So, like before, pretty much you'll see as I'm describing all sorts of vision, you always want mid control. That way you force the mid laner to step back, which then gives you access to either side of the map. So we'll do the starting point for blue side once again. So as a support on the blue side, you want to get mid pushed out. That way you're pushing in all the way. That mid laner and potentially other people that are grouping with him have to stand back and let you clear the wave. Always having a numbers advantage pretty much guarantees that you'll get access to the wave first, thereby pushing it and then allowing you to move to different locations to get wards down. Now, Baron's a little bit trickier because there's lots of points of interest that you want to be controlling. I recommend backing when you want to control Baron with multiple pinks, because if you're not receiving any help in your elo, then you're going to kind of have to do this piece by piece. So for starters, kind of the same concept as the dragon on red side. You want to pink ward this line brush right here, and then ward over the wall. The reason for that is you want to see access to if the mid laner is potentially coming over to contest, and it allows you to shoot skill shots over the wall. Now the rest is dependent on basically how much vision you can get out. In an ideal world, let's say we'll call it perfect world scenario, you have wards in these 3 locations. That way you can see all the corridors that pretty much people are coming outside of this location right here, but you should with this pressure have top pushed in. And then you can see people walking over. Now, in most situations, you don't actually get this kind of setup, and you kind of have to do a little bit of a weaker one. In this case, most of the time, what I find myself being able to get in terms of vision is right here and right here. This brush right here will allow you to see most of the concave over the wall outside of the tri-bush right here, and then you get a ward on the red buff. That way you can see a little bit deeper into this. It's important that you actually ward on the tip of the brush, not in the center like this, because it'll deny as much vision. You go right here, then you'll get a lot better concave of the information that you want to know. So in a lesser ideal scenario, you usually want this as your warding situation, and if you can't get this deep, then you probably want to get it warded over here, as this kind of tethers out in terms of vision about this location. The reason for this is so that you can see people potentially contesting the Blessed Plant, and same concept as the dragon popping over the wall to potentially steal it. Now, once you've established the pink ward, ideally you want another pink ward here, and another pink ward here, just denying the maximum amount of vision. Now, let's say you're a support and no one's really helping you right here. This is why I recommend that you buy multiple pink wards at once. Then what'll end up happening is you only have this set up, right? So you'll end up doing is after clearing the wave, if you feel comfortable, you can then move your pink ward to the tri-bush, since you know that there's no wards here, and you have a ward right here, so you will see if anyone walks over to ward over the wall into this line brush, and it will allow you to control all of the parts of the lane. Alright, so next we'll jump over, same situation, just on the different sides. So, just as before, you are the red side, want to get mid priority, making sure that you have the wave pushed out at least to the middle of the map. And the reason for this is the same situation as before. We want to get a ward in mid lane. Now, this ward is dependent on where you can place it and where people are standing. There's a lot of times a common scenario where there's a pink ward here, so you don't want to put your ward too far over, and you want to make sure that your mid lane ward is spotting the mid lane area. You mostly just want some kind of centerpiece like this. That way you can see wherever people are walking. And same scenario, you'll basically want to have your pink ward in this line brush once again, so that you can shoot skill shots and potentially catch people. As you can see, it's kind of like pretty much mid control is the most important part when you're wanting to contest Baron, because it's the most easiest access to getting to Baron, plus it's the least risky. If you're contesting, if you're the blue side and you've lost all vision control, you most likely want to walk like this. That way it gives you the most space to kind of juke out of spells in case people are standing in any of these brushes. You don't want to be walking through choke corridors when you don't see anything and then get hit by a bunch of spells. So you run into this scenario right here. You want to get a ward down mid, and then usually you want your ideal wards are going to be right here and right here, or potentially a little bit deeper. Actually, this is your ideal ward. That way you're covering all 3 corridors once again, and we just ignore this location because your wave should kind of let you know who's moving over in this location. Now, the thing a little bit different about the red side versus the blue side is where you put your pink. Now, when you're on blue side, you want to pink inside the pit, because red side walks over and usually wards over the wall, so you want to be in range of that. Now, this dynamic changes, though, when you're on this side of the map, when you're on the red side, because blue players are walking over and trying to ward over the wall, such as this. So that means that you want your pink a little bit farther outside the pit. That way it covers all of this vicinity for when supports are potentially warding over the wall. Now, ideally, when you're playing support after that, you usually take your sweeper and run it up and down the river, making sure that you cover both of these brushes to make sure there's no wards there. Now, in situations where you can't walk up this deep, and we'll just pretend that this pink ward doesn't exist at the current time. What you'll end up doing is having more shallow wards. So in a case where you're just trying to get quick vision and then go pull Baron immediately so you can see people walking, usually want a green ward about here. That way you're still covering the corridor over the wall. And then usually your green ward right here will be somewhere around this location. That way you're covering all of the corridors so you can see whenever someone's coming over to contest or potentially drop wards down. Now, the final part of the game is kind of like, how do you ward when there's no neutral objectives up? So pretty much in this situation, we'll be doing the same thing where I cover what the supports want to do in each of the scenarios. So let's say, for example, the top turret is up, the bottom turret is down, and you want to play to that. So pretty much in most cases, you want to just, as you can see from all of our videos, want to push out mid. The next part of it is just making sure that you have wards controlling the top side of the map. So in this case, always want to make sure that you have a ward down mid, preferably if this turret is still up, preferably right here. That way, once again, you can establish this line, shoot over skills. Then ideally, you want to get a ward here and a ward here. That way, you can transition and rotate to these sides. Pretty much most of the mid-game stuff for warding is just you want to have basically a line of sorts. So pretty much no matter what side you're on, red side or blue side, the most important ward is always warding the mid lane. That way you can see where people are rotating to, who's covering. Mid lane is the centerpiece of the map, and it allows you to rotate to both sides of the lanes, potentially for turrets, and that way you want to make sure that you always have a ward there. Then pretty much the other wards are such as, depending on whatever side you want to play to. If you want to play to bottom and your blue side, you want to ward here and ward in the jungle. That way you're covering all the 3 spots. Once again, as you can see, vision control, when you have 3 wards, is just about controlling the 3 corridors of the map that lead to either your objective or potentially cover you leading to their objective. In this case, right, you're the blue side, so you want to be able to push out mid and then rotate safely as fast as possible. These wards give you the ability to do that without getting caught as easily. Same situation, if you're on blue side and you're trying to play for top side, you ideally want wards in these 2 locations. That way, once again, you can push out mid, and you can rotate. This is why the team that pushes out and moves always usually wins, because then you can ward deeper, which causes, in this case, the red side to have to walk all the way around in order to defend, which makes them slower to getting to each of the objectives, and that's how you get turrets. Same scenario pretty much on the other side. You ward, for red side, you ward mid lane, and then we get wards down in the same locations pretty much as we want to control Baron, and then these 2 locations right here if we want to control the bottom side. Anyway, that's it for mid-game warding tips. Thanks for watching.